Hello friends, today our topic of discussion is therapeutic hypothermia for HIE babies. So in this, today we'll discuss these points. First we'll discuss different definitions related to asphyxia. Then we'll discuss what are the indications for therapeutic hypothermia for perinatal asphyxia. What are the contraindications and what is the procedure of cooling. Three phases are there: induction phase, maintenance phase, and rewarming phase. So how to do these phases? What are the things we have to do? Then what are the things we have to monitor during therapeutic hypothermia? What are the complications of therapeutic hypothermia? What are the different devices available for therapeutic hypothermia and how they function? Then in short, we'll discuss what is the pathophysiology of asphyxia and what is the mechanism of action of therapeutic hypothermia. So first coming to the definitions. So first, what is asphyxia? Asphyxia is reduced or decreased or absent gas exchange is called asphyxia. Means gas exchange is absent. Hypoxia is reduced or absent oxygenation to the tissue is hypoxia. Decreased or absent blood supply to the tissue is ischemia. So here this gas exchange is absent. Here oxygenation is decreased. Here blood flow is decreased. Blood supply is decreased. Then encephalopathy. Encephalopathy is impaired neurological function which includes depressed sensorium. Sensorium is depressed. Tone or reflex depressed. So that can include seizures also. So impaired neurological function with depressed sensorium, tone, and including seizures. Then hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. So encephalopathy or neurological dysfunction due to the perinatal event, any perinatal hypoxia or ischemia, encephalopathy is called hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. Then coming to the what is the definition of the perinatal asphyxia. Perinatal asphyxia is the better word than the birth asphyxia, because asphyxia can happen before birth, just after birth, or at birth also. That's why we call it perinatal asphyxia, not birth asphyxia. So according to the WHO, two definitions are there, mainly WHO and American Academy of Pediatrics. WHO says that failure to initiate or sustain breathing at birth is called perinatal asphyxia. Failure to initiate and sustain of breathing at birth, that is called perinatal asphyxia. But AAP definition is better. That includes four components. All four components should be present for perinatal asphyxia. Then only we will call it perinatal asphyxia. That is very important for medical legal issues. So according to AAP, for perinatal asphyxia, these four should be present. First is severe metabolic acidosis should be present. pH should be less than 7. That is called severe metabolic acidosis. Then APGAR score should be less than 3 at 5 minutes. Impaired neurological function or encephalopathy should be present, and multi-organ involvement should be present. If these four are there, then only we call it perinatal asphyxia. Now coming to the what are the indications of therapeutic hypothermia for perinatal asphyxia. So according to NICHD criteria, four criteria are there. These four criteria should be fulfilled before starting therapeutic hypothermia. First is gestation age of the baby should be more than 36 weeks. This is not indicated for preterm babies. Gestation age should be more than 36 weeks. Age of the baby should be less than 6 hours. More than 6 hours baby, it is not indicated, because after 6 hours secondary energy failures start. Third criteria is baby should be in moderate to severe encephalopathy. This is not indicated for mild encephalopathy, HIE stage 1, only moderate to severe encephalopathy babies, this is indicated. Fourth is baby should have severe metabolic acidosis, means pH should be less than 7 or base excess should be more than -16 in cord blood or within 1 hour of birth. In that ABG, pH should be less than 7 or base excess more than -16. These four criteria are there. If ABG is not available, baby is outborn baby, ABG is not available, then either of these three criteria should be there, like any sentinel event could be there, like cord prolapse, cord compression or cord prolapse, uterine rupture, cord rupture, That also we can take as a criteria. If this also is not there, then Abgar score at 10 minutes should be 5 or less. 10 minutes Abgar score should be 5 or less. This also is not there, then we can take if baby required PPV, positive pressure ventilation, for 10 minutes at birth. So if this is not available, then we can take these three. So these four criteria should match, then only we can start therapeutic hypothermia. Now coming to how to do cooling, what is the process? So three phases of cooling are there. First induction phase, maintenance phase, and then rewarming phase. So induction phase, we rapidly cool the baby from 37 degrees Celsius to 33.5 degrees Celsius plus minus 0.5. So induction phase is done rapidly. Rapidly we have to drop the baby's temperature within 30 minutes to 1 hour up to the 33.5 degrees Celsius plus minus 0.5, means 33 to 34 degrees Celsius. We have to bring down the baby's temperature. So we have to switch off the warmer, and if you have servo control devices, then we can set the target temperature and they will bring down the baby's temperature rapidly. And if we have that PCM material or manual, then in this case we have to do manually. So we have to insert the rectal probe, we have to measure the core temperature of the baby. Core temperature we measure by rectal probe. So rectal probe we have to insert 3 to 5 centimeter in rectum, and in this multipara monitor we have to monitor the temperature. So after induction phase we have to maintain the temperature for 72 hours. Between 33 to 34 degrees Celsius we have to maintain for 72 hours. The fluctuations should be minimum. We have to tightly regulate, we have to monitor temperature to avoid the fluctuations, because if fluctuations are more, that will impair the neurological outcome. Then after 72 hours, completion of the 72 hours, then we'll start rewarming, and rewarming is done slowly. So rewarming we do in 6 to 10 hours. We increase the temperature, baby's temperature, up to 36.5 degrees Celsius. So we can do 0.3 to 0.5 degrees Celsius per hour in 6 to 10 hours. So because during rewarming many complications can happen like shock, hypotension, bleeding, seizures, hyperkalemia. So rewarming we should do slowly, and we have to monitor for these complications. Now we'll see what are the things we have to monitor during therapeutic hypothermia and how frequently we should monitor. So these things are we have to monitor. First is temperature. So temperature is very important. We should monitor the core body temperature by rectal probe and surface temperature by skin probe. So core body temperature we have to maintain between 33.5 degrees Celsius plus minus 0.5 degrees Celsius. So for that, during first 4 hours we have to monitor the temperature every 15 minutes, and after 4 hours up to 72 hours hourly we should monitor the temperature. So we should avoid the fluctuation. We have to regulate the temperature tightly. Second is heart rate we should monitor, because during therapeutic hypothermia, because hypothermia causes the sinus bradycardia, heart rate is decreased. So every 1 degree Celsius drop in temperature causes 15 drop in heart rate. So we can accept up to the 70 beats per minute if saturation is normal, BP is normal, and rhythm is sinus rhythm. So we can accept up to the 70 beats per minute of the sinus bradycardia. So heart rate we should monitor. So hourly we should monitor the heart rate also. Third is the BP. So BP monitoring is very important, because during therapeutic hypothermia, color is not reliable, CFT is not reliable, because CFT will be prolonged, color will be dusky. So to assess the perfusion, we have to see the continuous invasive BP monitoring is desirable. So continuous BP monitoring is very important to assess the perfusion and shock. Next is urine output. Because therapeutic hypothermia also can cause the oliguria or anuria, or shock also can cause oliguria. So for shock or to assess the renal function, we should monitor the urine output 6 hourly, and we should maintain urine output more than 1 ml per kg per hour. Next is weight. We should monitor the daily, or sometimes if excessive weight gain is there, 12 hourly also we can monitor to assess the fluid balance for that baby. Next is skin. therapeutic hypothermia can cause subcutaneous fat necrosis, or some pressure sores can happen in HIE babies. For that, skin we should monitor in each shift 6 hourly. We can change the position also, and we should assess for skin damage every 6 hours. Next is neurological assessment. For neurological, sensorium and tone, all neurological examination we should do daily for that baby to assess the improvement or deterioration in neurological condition of that baby. That we can do by the Thompson scoring. So Thompson scoring is like is we can quantitate that in scoring will be there. So in subjective means objective assessment we can do by this Thompson scoring that we should do daily basis. Many lab tests we have to do during therapeutic hypothermia: CBC, electrolytes, renal function test, liver function test, ABG, coagulation profile, and blood glucose. CBC we should do before starting therapeutic hypothermia. Then daily we have to do CBC to see for platelets causing thrombocytopenia or not. Electrolytes, first day we have to do 12 hourly. After that, daily we have to do electrolyte to look for any electrolyte abnormality like hyperkalemia, hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, hypercalcemia. Renal function we have to do daily before starting, and after starting daily we have to do urea rate to assess renal function. Liver function we should do before starting, then next day, after, and then 72 hours. ABG we can do 12 hourly or 24 hourly depending on the condition of the ventilation. Coagulation profile we have to do before starting, then at 24 hours, and then at 72 hours. Blood glucose we should monitor 6 to 8 hourly, because in HIE and therapeutic hyperthermia, hypoglycemia can happen. So these things we have to monitor. Now coming to what are the complications can happen during hypothermia, can happen during induction, maintenance, or during rewarming phase. So most of the complications happen during rewarming phase only. So we have to do slow rewarming. So what are the things can happen? Hypotension can happen, hypotension or shock, because during rewarming vasodilation happens. That can cause hypotension and shock. So we have to do BP monitoring. Next is coagulopathy, deranged APTT and PT, or DIC can cause. Platelet dysfunction or thrombocytopenia can happen during therapeutic hypothermia. Bleeding can happen because of coagulopathy and thrombocytopenia. Bleeding can happen. So ICH, intracranial hemorrhage or pulmonary hemorrhage can happen. So we have to do USG cranium also to rule out intracranial hemorrhage. During hypothermia, PPHN can happen because hypothermia causes raised pulmonary pressure that can cause PPHN. So severe PPHN is a contraindication for therapeutic hypothermia. During rewarming, hyperkalemia can happen. We have seen sometimes 9-10 of potassium also during rewarming phase. So we have to do electrolyte monitoring during rewarming. Calcium can decrease or increase. Hypocalcemia or hypercalcemia can happen. During therapeutic hypothermia, because of decreased renal perfusion, oliguria or anuria can happen. So we have to do monitoring of urine output. During rewarming phase, seizures can precipitate, and subcutaneous fat necrosis. So these are the complications of therapeutic hypothermia. Next, what are the different devices available for therapeutic hypothermia? So two types of devices available. One is completely servo control, completely automated devices are available for therapeutic hypothermia. Criticul and Ticotherm, most commonly used in India. These are completely servo control, means here induction phase also completely automatic. We have to set the target temperature and they will cool rapidly up to the desired temperature, and rewarming also is completely automated. We have to set the target temperature and they will do slow rewarming. So they are completely servo control. Here temperature fluctuations will be less, temperature maintenance will be good here, fluctuations are less here. So but these are very costly. So in resource limited settings we use phase changing material. Phase changing material we use for therapeutic hypothermia. Here we have to do manually, many things we have to do manually. We have to monitor the temperature and then we have to do manual changes to maintain the temperature. Here fluctuation risk will be more, so we have to do monitoring more aggressively. So phase changing material are made of the fatty acids, esters and paraffins. What is the principle of the phase changing material? That they will absorb the heat from the baby. Heat transfer will happen from baby to the phase changing material. We have to keep this phase changing material mattress below the baby. Heat will transfer from baby to the phase changing material till the melting point of the phase changing material. So after melting point, that heat transfer will stop. So we can fix a target temperature by fixing the melting point. So two types of PCM are available, PCM 21 and PCM 29. So PCM 21 melting point is 21 degrees Celsius, means that can drop the baby's temperature rapidly, because here melting point is 21 degrees Celsius, that will absorb heat more. So this 21 we use in induction phase, because here we have to drop the baby's temperature rapidly. So in induction phase we use PCM 21. After once we have achieved that target temperature, we have to maintain that temperature. For that we use in maintenance phase PCM 29. So here melting point is 29 degrees Celsius. So after induction phase we have to shift to the PCM 29 to maintain that temperature. How to do, what is the procedure? So first, PCM material we have to keep in refrigerator, but we should not frozen that PCM material. We should keep in the lower compartment of the refrigerator. When we have to start that cooling, then we have to take out that PCM material, PCM sheet from the refrigerator, keep for 30 minutes in room air, then switch off the warmer, fix the rectal probe, and then we have to keep that sheet below the baby. And till we have to keep the PCM 21. Then temperature will reduce. Once temperature comes down to 34 degrees Celsius, then we have to remove the 21 and we have to put the PCM 29. Okay, that will maintain the temperature between 33 to 34 degrees Celsius. After that, we have to monitor the temperature. If temperature is going above 33.8 degrees Celsius, means temperature is going up. In that condition, we have to check if PCM 29 is melt or not. If it is melt completely, we can change the PCM 29. If PCM 29 condition is good, then we can put PCM 21 also to reduce the temperature up to 33.5 degrees Celsius. That we have to adjust like this. If temperature is going down below 33.2 degrees Celsius, is going down, then we can keep a cloth sheet between the baby and the PCM material. In that condition, baby's temperature will increase slightly. If still temperature is down, then we can switch on the warmer at manual mode at 10 to 20% of heater output to increase that temperature. So like this we have to adjust. We can keep the sheet also. We can, to increase the temperature, we can switch on the warmer also. If temperature is going up, then we can put the PCM 21 or we can change the PCM 29. So these things we have to monitor and we have to change accordingly to maintain the temperature and to avoid the fluctuation. Now, what is the mechanism of action of therapeutic hypothermia? How it reduces the neurological injury and how it improves the neurological outcome. So these are the mechanism of action of therapeutic hypothermia. First, because of decrease in temperature or hypothermia, cerebral metabolism rate will reduce. Cerebral metabolism rate will reduce. That will decrease the energy utilization. This also reduces the cytotoxic amino acid accumulation, like glutamate. Glutamate is the cytotoxic amino acid that causes the neurological injury. So therapeutic hypothermia reduces the accumulation of the glutamate also. Therapeutic hypothermia reduces the apoptosis, reduces the free radical injury. Free radicals causes neurological injury. So therapeutic hypothermia reduces this also. And this inhibits the inflammatory cascade. Initiation of the inflammatory cascade also is reduced by the therapeutic hypothermia. So these are the mechanisms of therapeutic hypothermia. Now coming to pathophysiology of hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy or penital asphyxia. So if any event happens, hypoxia or ischemic event happens, then there will be three phases will be there: primary phase, latent phase, and secondary phase. In primary phase, immediate neuronal injury will happen. In primary phase, immediate injury will happen. After that, in latent phase, there will be recovery or reperfusion will happen. Recovery will happen. That will last for around 6 hours. After that, there will be prolonged injury will start. That is called secondary energy failure or secondary phase. In that, prolonged neurological damage happens by free radical injury. So these three phases are there. So how it happens? So if any hypoxic ischemic event happens, in that case anaerobic glycolysis will start because of hypoxia. In anaerobic glycolysis, ATP will decrease. Because of decrease in ATP, there will be accumulation of the glutamate, cytotoxic amino acid. Glutamate will increase. Because of increase in glutamate, NMDA receptor will activated, and there will be calcium influx into the cells, into the brain cells. Calcium influx will happen. Because of this calcium influx, protease and lipase will be activated, and lipase will cause peroxidation, because in cell membrane there will be the lipids will be there, and because of lipase will cause peroxidation of the lipids, and because of these peroxidation, free radicals will generate, and these free radicals will cause neuronal injury. So this is the pathophysiology of the neuronal injury in the hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. One more is that, so in free radical injury happens, what apoptosis happens. So because of the calcium influx, there will be the impaired function of the mitochondria into the cell. Because of the impaired function of the mitochondria, apoptosis will start of that cell. If any cell's mitochondria is not functioning well, that cell will go in apoptosis. So in apoptosis and free radical injury, these will cause neuronal injury in case of hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. Now in the end, does it really reduces the neurological impairment? So Cochrane says that therapeutic hypothermia improves the composite outcome, reduces the risk of the death and neurological disability at 18 months of age. So according to Cochrane, there is the significant benefit is there of therapeutic hypothermia in reduction of the neurodevelopmental disability. But recently one trial was done in lower middle income countries, including in India. HELIX trial was done. HELIX trial says that in lower middle income countries, it does not reduce the risk of the mortality. In fact, it increases the risk of the mortality. So that's why some confusion is there regarding, but still is the standard of care of treatment is there for parental asphyxia. Thank you so much.